Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Back out here in the out back, getting a look at the old farm pond, which is no more than 2 feet deep. Actually, might be a little bit deeper now. We're looking south from here. So, here's that big tamarack I was telling you about. Oh, let me refocus this again. There you go. Here's that big tamarack. And in the tamarack, I've just discovered a porcupine. He's living in the crevice. I don't know if you can see him in there. He's just taking it easy, chilling out. I don't want to bug him. I don't want to get porked, so to speak. So I'm reaching that age where a lot of things becoming obvious to me that weren't as obvious to me before. So we're going to start talking about the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment says that we are secure in our rights to our person, our property, our houses, and our effects from undue, unreasonable searches and seizures. Well, from who? From the government. So what do we find ourselves doing every tax season? Just go ahead and just, like it's normal business, surrendering our private affairs, our private papers, our private documents about our property, about how much money we made. None of this is the government's business, you know. Another one, I started applying for Medicare and Social Security, and they start asking me a whole bunch of questions there. It's like, it's none of your business, but it's a form of extortion. They're putting all this money into the system, but in order to get that money back out, they demand that we surrender our private information to them. This is why government should not be in charge of any kind of a welfare system, because it automatically means it's going to violate your rights. Now, some people say, well, you know what, I don't got nothing to hide. I'm not doing anything wrong. Yeah? What's that got to do with keeping your private business your own? Nobody should know what you're up to. No, it's nobody's business what you're up to. This has gone too far. We've gotten too used to the notion that the government is somehow our keeper, and that we are its dependents, and therefore must surrender our information to them. This could not be further from the founders' idea, you know? And I've probably said this before, but Lord knows, these aren't just these rights of ours that we talk about. They're not just our personal rights. They belong to the human race. And so it's up to each and every one of us to defend them as best we can. No matter how little or small or insignificant you might think these rights are, they have a lot of significance for following generations. Because if they don't have them, they'll never know they missed them. And that'll be a sad thing, because then we'll be all kept. As it is, we're with TSA, the big thing with TSA. Oh, the government shutdown, TSA. Well, before 2001, there was no such thing as TSA. People boarded airplanes. There's minimum security. The expectation was that everybody gets on that airplane, expect to get back off that airplane in one piece. Now, there's some out there say, well, what about the terrorists? What about the terrorists? The terrorists, government are the ones behind all terrorism. They use terrorism to change public perception in order for them to then increase security for themselves. We're not any safer. We are not any safer having people go through our private business and our papers and our bags and stripping us down and x-raying us at a TSA checkpoint. We aren't any safer with ICE running around fully armed in combat gear, picking people up off the street. And we're less safe. The United States is becoming an open air prison. Slowly but surely, we are being, this whole idea of real ID and a national ID card, that's all generated so that we will have to start producing this stuff in order to cross the border from one state to another. In order to get anything done, you automatically have to produce this. And for what? To get something back that was stolen from us in the first place. All these welfare things, all these so-called services and benefits we're getting from the government, we put that money in there. We paid for all that. That's ours. And for the government to say, well, now you have to surrender your information in order to enjoy these benefits. Well, like I said before, that's why we should never have had those in the first place, because that money that we've spent and had squandered by the US government and all these so-called programs, because all they do is build bureaucracy. They just build more people in the government while doling out a little bit of services. Generally speaking, we're not getting any benefit. If we'd kept the money locally in our own pockets and paid the local governments the minimum it took them to maintain the basic infrastructure, sheriffs, courts, clerks, roads, drainage, such and such, we'd have money to provide for the charities we need locally. Once upon a time, that's what we used to do. Once upon a time, that's what we used to do. But now we're in this prison planet where it's every man for himself kind of mentality continually growing. Or this notion that the government will come in and save us. Government will not save us. Look at what happened in North Carolina during that big hurricane storm down there with all the flooding. They got left to their own. Look at what happened in Lahaina during that big fire. They got left on their own. The Palisades in California, left on their own. The big fires in Nebraska right now. There's not going to be any real serious aid for any of that. The people don't matter to this government. I don't know if you noticed that or not. They're into world conquest, and they'll use every single one of us in order to achieve it. So don't think for 1 second that the government actually, as a policy, cares for us. That's why we need to start tearing it down. This is why I keep arguing. We need to have local control. We need to have local representation in our local governments, and our state governments, and our federal governments. I had a discussion with a guy about, well, California. You know, I say every congressional seat should have one congressman from each county. And he says, well, some counties in California have millions, and other counties only have 300. I'm like, well, you got to view that as if each one is its own country. Doesn't matter what the population is. It matters what the general consensus is on who's going to be the one representing them. And they get that consensus. Wow. Huh. Seems to be alive still. Old oak tree I planted. There's another one I planted. Huh. Maybe these guys will make it. They look like they've got new growth on them. Maybe. Now we got to start treating our townships and our counties. If you don't have townships, then you're going to have to look at your states and ask why not? Why don't I have a local government that's represents me locally here within this county that I'm in. Because counties can be very big out west. Counties out east, it can be very small. So it's not so much the population either. It's the demographic of that population that's got to be looked at. You know, here in my county, we've got some relatively big cities. Well, not really, they're towns. You know, we have 25,000 people in this county total. You know, I have 800 people living in my township. All right, the two towns we have on the coast of the Huron, Lake Huron, you know, because they have a higher population right now, they have more representation in the county government. Therefore, instead of being a representative government, it becomes a democratic government where their votes count, and our votes out here in the countryside, not so much. And that's not right. We should have a fair say in how our money's spent, and how, yeah, exactly, how that money's spent. And it should have nothing to do with our private information. You know, I've mentioned before, there should be no income tax. Income tax, you know, the 16th Amendment says you can have an income tax. Well, what it doesn't say is you can have that income tax, but you can't violate anybody's right to their privacy in the process of trying to collect that tax. So it's kind of a funny little joke there. There's a play by Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice, where the merchant had it out for a lender had it out for a merchant. He's hopefully trying to take over his ship and what have you. Well, the merchant came through, and so the lender was hoping to get his pound of flesh from this merchant. But the lawyer came and said, yeah, you might be able to take the man's heart, which is what a pound of flesh is, but you can't take a drop of blood with it, which made his capacity to take that heart impossible. Same rule applies with the income tax. They might have said in the 16th Amendment that sure, the government can collect income from whatever means, but it didn't say that it overrides the Fourth Amendment to our papers, houses, person, and effects. So, and that whole thing needs to go away, because once again, it's part of this whole prison planet thing we're living in. Okay, it's an open air prison. They use the income tax to help keep us poor, to make sure that we never reach a level of independence, that we can become a voice within our counties and townships and state. They take that away from us. The same rule applies to the property taxes, the way they're set up. You know, they need to take, right now, they're taking your personal private information about what you have on your land. It's none of their business. The land, as a matter of public record, that is their business. They can say, okay, you have so many acres or so and such part of an acre, and then we can tax you on that. We can tax you on what you're using the acre for. Is it a business? Is it residential? Is it commercial? Is it industrial? Is it agriculture? You know, those are not personal information. Those are items of public record. Well, that's all they can tax you. That's the only way they can tax you. They can't, and the thing about the way that it is now is, you put a barn or you do any kind of improvement on your land, and that automatically, because now they're poking into your business, it automatically increases the value of your land, and you're basically being penalized for your land improvement. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? It just really burns me. You know, they make us put this money in to Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, and then they force us to jump through hoops by surrendering our personal information to get it back out. And they can use that in all kinds of ways. I mean, they're selling this information. They're not supposed to be, but I'm sure that information getting out. When we go shopping, nobody protects our rights against corporations. Corporations are basically a proxy for the government. Governments license corporations. So you could say that corporations are agents for the government. So when they collect information, the government can come get that information, even though they say it's private. Yeah, well, it's private and then there's private. If you don't have to surrender it, that's real privacy. But if you have to surrender it, once again, in order to receive a service, then it's not a right. It's not a right anymore. There is a laws against that. The government cannot convert a right, like your privacy, into a privilege. And the law says by issuing a license or charging a fee, stuff like that. But it also means to receive a service. And it goes right back to they shouldn't be providing these services in the first place. So I kind of come full circle here. These are not our personal rights. Our rights are the rights of humanity. We need to start acting like that. After we're gone, our rights and the principles of liberty are the only things that we're going to leave to our offspring that have any real value. Property comes and goes. Wealth comes and goes. The only thing of actual value we pass on to our offspring is liberty and our rights. So I think that's it. Everybody have a good day. God bless you. Stay safe. Keep an eye on the old oil market, I guess. Speak up against this war. Write your congressmen, write your senators. Once again, it's just another way of draining our wealth. Another 200 billion. Boom, just like that. Where's that coming from? It's coming from us. It's coming from inflation. It's coming from the inflation. It's coming from the goddamn devaluation of our dollar. Every time they just print up another 200 million, the value of our dollar goes down. It takes more dollars, more of our hard-earned money to go out and buy things. Everybody sees this when you go shopping. You buy gas, pay the electric bill. The madness has to stop. This goes back to what I was talking about with the Electoral College. Now, we need to have actual people that are competent to be the president of the United States. How about that for an idea? We got to stop this popular vote crap. It's based on personality and how much money you can spend. We got to get rid of these goddamn powerful special interest groups, oligarchs that control the president, that control the members of the Senate, that control the members of the House. There should be no money involved in this. I mean, President Trump right now, he's playing the markets. On Friday, he says he's going to do this terrible thing, and on Monday he comes back and says, well, maybe not. Oil prices go up and down, according to what he says. At least they have been. I don't know if they'll continue to. If I was the stock market, I'd stop listening. Prepare for the worst. But if I'm a stock market that's bought into the system or bought by the system, then what's going to happen? They're going to play along just so they can make money too. It's all got to be changed. And it's got to be changed by people with reasonable ideas. Not people just walking up like the Article 5 people who want to put Band-Aids and things and actually improve things for corporations. They haven't examined the entire problem. They haven't got to the root cause. That districts are the root cause. Popular votes on a statewide or nationwide scale are impossible. They're impossible. There's no way to be able to maintain any kind of integrity of the vote with this many millions of people voting, especially when you have people now actively engaged in cheating. Making up excuses to make it easier for them to cheat. And I've talked about this before. You know, you elect your township supervisor at the state level, and he picks the representative to represent the township in the State House of Representatives. Boom, direct link between you, your supervisor, and the God-earned representative in the state. Can't get any better than that. Well, this thing's gone 20 minutes. I got to cut it off. It's hard to transfer. Anyway, God bless you again. I'll see you next time.